Second half of section 6 of chapter 5, finding rational zeros, more of it. All right, I knew you liked it. That's why we did more, right? So we're remembering, we're taking the factor of the constant term and putting it over the factors of the leading coefficients, and that gives us all the possible zeros. But then we have to go through one by one to find out, is this in actuality really a zero or not? So we've ruled out all of the things that are not possibles, and then we have to rule out from the possibles what actually is and isn't. So I've got, in this case, we've got a fairly large constant term and a fairly large coefficient. So let's start with the factors of 16. 16 is 1 times 16, and 2 times 8, and 4 times 4. And 4 is 1 times 4 and 2 times 2. So when we list them all out, here we go. Let's say we've got, and remember we're going to say, right now we're just going to say plus or minus, and then when we narrow it all down, then we'll be done. So we're going to put each of these over 1 is going to be themselves. So we'll say plus or minus 1, 2, 4, 8, and 16, because that's all over 1. Now we've got to put all of these over 2. So 1 over 2, 2 over 2 is the same as 1. 4 over 2 is the same as 2. 8 over 2 is the same as 4. 16 over 2 is the same as 8. Okay, so we've done all the 2's. Then we've got to do the 4 over 4's. So 1 over 4, 2 over 4 is the same as a half. 4 over 4 is the same as 1. 8 over 4 is the same as 2. 16 over 4 is the same as 4. So it's not as bad as we thought. Here we go. So plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, 4, 8, 16, 1 half, and 1/4. So those are all our possibilities. But that's what? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 possibilities. Mrs. Horning, do we have to do all of these? Well, here's the deal for today. You can narrow down even further those options if you have a graph. Don't laugh at my drawings, please. Here we go. So, and I don't even know if you can see that. Hopefully you can see that on the, oh, and now I'm going to make it worse. Okay, so here it goes. So it starts down here and goes up and down and up. All right, and these, I don't know if you can tell, these are by 2's. So this is the graph of 4x cubed minus 20x plus 16. So if this is our graph, and the zeros are where the graph crosses the x-axis. These are kind of the areas where they're going to cross. And I'm looking to see, it looks like the 1 is pretty darn close. So let's start there, because 1 is an easy one to work with, and it looks like that might be a 0. So do you see how I took all of those options and I narrowed it down to, well, which one of these is close to something that's actually on the graph? So let's do it. So remember, when we write down, we've got 4. We don't have an x squared term, so don't forget the 0 in your synthetic division to hold that place value, and negative 20 and 16. And we're going to use synthetic division and divide by the 0 of 1. And I'm going to use a different marker because that one is dying and I'm sure it's hard to see. All right, so bring down your 4. 1 times 4 is 4. Are you remembering how to do this now? Is it starting to be quicker? Hopefully after all of those, huh? 0 plus 4 is 4. 1 times 4, bring it over. Negative 20 and 4 is a negative 16. 1 times negative 16 is negative 16. Oh, that's what we wanted. So 1 is one of our options. So we have x minus 1. And what we have left, actually, what did I do before? Let's put that in front of here. The x minus 1, and then this is 4x squared plus 4x minus 16. So then we can factor this one out. We can factor a 4 out of here and make this x squared plus x minus 4 times 4 is 16. And so we can actually put that 4 all the way in front of this. And so then when we're going all the way to find all of the zeros, we can look and see, well, let's see. X times x is x squared. Negative 4, we need a plus and a minus, but 4 is either 2 times 2, which is going to go away, or 1 times 4, which is going to get me 3 in the middle. So this isn't going to work. So we're not going to be able to factor it. So you're going to have to use the quadratic formula. So let's do it. Here we go. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So let's put them in. This one's going to be easy because we've got a lot of 1s in here. You could have left that 4 in, but do you see how it's much easier if you factor that out of there? All right, so negative 1 plus or minus the square root of b squared is just 1, minus 4 times a is 1, times c is negative 4. So negative 4 times a negative 4 is a positive 16, plus 1 is 17. So negative 1 plus or minus 17 all over 2 times a is 2. So these are our other 2 zeros. So we've got 1 0 of 1, and then the other 2 zeros are negative 1 plus or minus. Remember, that means that's going to make it into 2 answers, because if you take plus the square root of 17, that's one answer, and then if you come back and work it and do minus the square root of 17, that's another answer. But what we're going to do, for what we're doing, you can just leave that answer like that. You don't have to complete it. Just leave it plus or minus the square root of 17. So these are the 3 zeros that we're looking for. So mainly, we're doing the exact same thing we just did, except we're narrowing our search down by using a graph and looking to see, oh, okay, which one of these looks like it's kind of close. All right, so use your graph. You can, if you have a graphing calculator, you can type that function into your calculator to get a graph. The ones that I'm going to give you in your assignment, they will have a graph in the book, and so you can just use the graph that's in the book. All right, so the last thing for today, you know it's a word problem and you love it. I know you do. Stop groaning. All right, here we go. A prism has a square base with a height that's 5 feet longer than either side of the base, and the volume is 28 feet cubed. What is the height? Okay, so you all are much better at drawing the pictures than I am, so draw your own and don't laugh at mine. So we've got a prism, and you know a prism has so it has a square base and then height, yeah, something like this. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, I think I have it upside down. That's okay. So we've got it says that the sides of the base, we don't know, and the height is 5 feet longer than the sides of the base. So there's our parts, and yeah, sorry, drawing. Draw your own. All right. So we want the volume of a prism, and if you'll remember, the volume of a prism is just length times width times height, because it's a square prism, so it's an easy one. So volume equals length times width times height, and they told us that the volume is 28 feet cubed. So 28 equals the length times the width times the height. Well, the length and the width are both x, and the height is x plus 5. So multiply it out. 28 equals x squared times x is x cubed. X squared times 5 is 5x squared. And then subtract the 28 to get it to the other side. All right. So now, in order to factor this out, because there's nothing in common, we're going to have to find the zeros. So narrow down your search by using the formula. So the factors of 28 are 1 and 28, 2 and 14, 4 and 7. And thankfully, we have a 1 for our leading coefficient, so we don't have to worry. So in other words, all of these are just plus or minus. These are our options. All right, we can't have any other zeros other than any of these. And because we're dealing with a word problem and we're dealing with a height, we can totally rule out any negative answers. So we've just now ruled it down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 possible solutions. So at least that's not an infinite number. We're down to 6. So at this point, we simply have to just start trying them. Sorry, that's the way you got to do it. So don't forget to put in a number for your x term. So we're just going to use synthetic division. Here we go. 1, 5, 0, and negative 28. And let's just start at the lowest because it's easiest. So bring down the 1. 1 times 1 is 1. 5, 6. 1 times 6 is 6. Bring it down. If you think you can do this faster and find it quicker, do it. There we go. 1 times 6 is 6. And that doesn't match, so we move on. 1, 5, 0, negative 28. Let's just try a 2. Bring down the 1. 1 times 2. 5 plus 2 is 7. 7 times 2 is 14. Plus 0 is 14. 2 times 14 is 28. Aha! That's what we're looking for. Second time, not bad. Okay, so 2 is one of our zeros. So we know that we've got x minus 2, and then we've got 1x squared plus 7x plus 14. So we look to see, well, is this going to factor? Do we have any other possibilities? 14 is 2 times 7 or 1 times 14. Neither of those can we add together to get 7. So it's not going to factor that way. So we're going to have to use the quadratic formula. And what I would suggest at this point is, do you remember using the discriminant? Remember, the discriminant was the part that's under the square root. So that's the b squared minus 4ac. Let's figure the discriminant and make sure that we have real answers. So b squared, 7 squared is 49. Minus 4 times a is 1, so minus 4 times c is 14. So let's see, what is 14 times 4? 4 times 4 is 16, 1, 4, 5. So 49 minus 56 is going to give you a negative answer. If you have a negative discriminant, do you remember if you have a negative discriminant, that means you have 2 imaginary answers. So both of the factors of this trinomial are going to be imaginary. So neither of those are going to be possible solutions to our problem because we're dealing with real, not imaginary. So 2 is the only answer we want right now. So 2 is our x. And what is it that our problem is asking? The problem says, what is the height? The height is our 2 plus 5 is 7. And so we want, and their feet. So the final answer is the height is 7 feet. And that's the final answer that we're looking for. So what we're doing is exactly the same thing we did in the last lesson. We are looking at functions, and we are looking for all of the possible solutions, and that narrows it down for us. But then in those possible solutions, we've got to just eliminate those one by one until we come upon the actual answer to our problem. And we will narrow that down using graphs. You can just look at the graph to see, which one is closest to one of the possible solutions that I have, or use your list and narrow it down by what you need from your problem. All right, quick lesson again. See you soon.